Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Chuck. My name is Chuck Guglielmo. It's a weekly interview show where we talk with interesting people. And look who I found.
Well, you didn't score a slam dunk this week.
A super interesting person in Jimmy Kulko.
Thank you. Glad to be here, by the way.
Face weekday mornings here on Channel 6 and 19.
Yeah.
What's that called now? North Coast?
Yeah, here we go. We had AM Live, Pat Williams Day, then there was North Coast Mornings with Bob. Now it's Sunrise Live.
Oh, it's Sunrise Live.
Sunrise Live is the new iteration. Yep.
Most people know you as Jiminy Critic. How did you get that name?
Well, the funny thing was, I've been working with Conneaut, well, it was Conneaut Phone Company. Now, we're Great Wave Communications is the new name, same company. But a few years back, and this is probably 4 or 5 years ago now, I had the regular personnel type job I was doing at the company, but on the side, Ken Johnson knew that I loved movies, and he did too. So he kind of thought, well, we're going to start fiddling around with some video stuff at work and different things like that. Maybe we could have me, do movie reviews, because you like movies anyway, and just as something extra we do. I think he came up with the name because we couldn't, of course, use Jiminy Cricket. That was taken. So we came up with Jiminy Critic, and back in the day, Mike Breeze was involved some filming my editions, and we thought he called me Conneaut's entertainment conscience, Jiminy Critic. So I would go to movie reviews and places they sent me in different places around Cleveland, get a movie about a week before it would come out. Then we would film me doing, sometimes we acted out part of the movie, sometimes they put weird scenes behind me, but I would kind of review in 3 to 4 minutes what that new movie was going to be that was coming out, then they'd play it on the program.
Now, are you called Jiminy Critic on the streets outside?
Sometimes people still use that moniker, but I haven't used it at work for a number of years, but I understand it's one of those things they picked up and enjoyed, and I don't care, it's fine, but we don't use it a whole lot anymore because I don't do those specifically filmed reviews. I still like movies. I just don't have that job right now at work, so.
Before we went on the air, Jimmy, I was going to say Jiminy Critic.
So that's fine.
Jimmy Kulko was telling me, why you have me on? I'm not an interesting person. Well, here's why you're an interesting person.
Okay.
First of all, you have a morning talk show.
Okay.
You work at Great Wave Communications and are very into cell phones, what we're going to talk about. As I lose my train of thought.
That's okay.
Oh, movies.
Yeah.
You can tell people what movies they can go see or not, whether they believe you or not. So this is why you're so interesting to me.
Yeah.
So let's start right now. How's that cell phone business going?
Well, I haven't been selling cell phones from the company for a number of years now. Now, we're all into at work, I got into the iPhone they gave me. I have a work phone because I need to be reached. Apparently I'm important enough to be reached 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I have an iPhone, which I never had before. I always carried an Android phone around, but it's fine. I like it because you have to have it for work and it's convenient, but I would be a guy that wouldn't care about having a phone on him all the time. It's just one of those things nowadays it's a convenience factor and you almost have to have it for work, but I don't sell them at the work anymore. We don't do that anymore. No, they don't do that anymore.
When we used to have you on in the morning, you would come in and do a special
Sometimes I would, exactly.
Speech.
Exactly. Yes, we did at AT&T service way back when.
You get a lot of calls on that.
Sometimes I would, yeah, absolutely. And I have a lot of customers, it's funny, that watch the show now that when they call into me, they said, I remember buying a cell phone from you years ago. And I said, well, I hope it's still working because I don't do that anymore, but they remember that.
Well, very smart man here with the cell phone. I remember I'm one of those people that, use it to call somebody or receive a call. I can't do anything else on it. But now, watching the Cleveland Indians play, they've got this commercial out there, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Where if you go out of town, you're able to watch a Cleveland Indians game or any out-of-market game on your cell phone. How do you do that?
Well, take out your cell phone. You can see I have my lovely family on there. You press up where you get to your settings, and I would have to have an app on my phone somewhere, probably MLB.com or maybe Indians.com, whatever it is, I'm sure. Or YouTube. I can do YouTube clips on the phone here too as well, and I know you're on YouTube with your interviews a lot. That's where I actually catch a lot of your interviews because I don't live in the Conneaut area, so I don't get to see a lot every week. And you watch right on the screen, whether you're on a tablet, phone, the streaming, if you're in a Wi-Fi situation, you can pick up almost anything nowadays, sports included.
A cell phone.
Isn't that amazing?
When did that start?
Are you still on a flip phone right now? Tell me.
I
knew you'd be a flip phone.
Like I say, I just know how to call.
Do you text on it ever?
No.
Oh, you just call. Okay.
Just call.
I understand. Mine's because I have to have it actually, so I know how to use it because I have to know how to use it, but I wish we didn't have to have that, but today's world, you got to be able to communicate almost 24/7.
Didn't you say your dad has a flip phone? He
He
called
did,
you?
well, yeah, he did. He was a flip phone. When he goes to buy phones, he used to tell the guy, and he would tell me, "Sir, I'm going to tell you before you start your sales speech on me," because they want you to get into the newest phone. They probably want you to get into the newest phone.
Right.
Here's what I need. I need a phone that rings and that I can answer and call people. That's all I need. So he would always have the cheaper flip phone. That was my dad. That's what he had.
When did the cell phone start?
What's that?
When did the cell phone?
I don't know. Oh boy, I don't know exactly.
Was it
70s maybe?
Oh, that late. That
Well,
long
I
ago.
mean, the technology was probably there, but big usage.
I didn't go that far back.
I don't know that it was more than into the 70s or so. Now the last
Really?
decade explosion. But
Really?
I think don't quote me, but it's not been that long. If you really think about it, 40, 30 years, I bet.
Yeah, but
But they've exploded.
I was going to say in the mid '80s, late '80s.
Well, you know, you could be right on that. I'm just throwing that out of my mind. I'm picturing those big old. Remember, the car phones used to be the coolest thing. If you wanted to spend tons of money to buy one, and then the tons of money for a monthly service, you'd have this big old bag thing in your car, attach it, and then the big old huge phone with the big, antenna hanging off it. You thought you were the coolest thing in the world if you ever got to use one of those. They cost an arm and a leg. Nowadays, phones, some services you buy there, depending on which cell service you go with, they might give you the phone free. You can get service for 30, 40, 50 bucks a month. That includes phone, internet, data usage, texting. It's just because it's so widespread, it's just come down anymore. But enjoy that flip phone.
Jimmy Kulko is my guest. Most of you know him as Jiminy Critic, and you can catch his show Monday through Friday from 7 to 10 on Channel 6 and 19. He really does a great job on that.
Well, thank you.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Sure.
But now let's move into something you know a lot about. 1973, I'm told, by the way, is when that cell phone came about.
Was it so 70s?
I graduated that year.
Very nice, very nice. See, it just
I bet I had a flip phone back then. That's
No.
probably that.
When did you say you graduated?
1973.
Oh, I thought we were about the same. I graduated in 80. I thought I was, you're old
No,
man.
I got you by about 7 years then, huh?
So you're that much closer to retirement than I am.
Yeah, very close, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Let's go to something that you're very good at.
Oh, boy.
And that's critiquing movies.
Okay.
So, what are the hottest movies out there right now in your estimation?
Oh boy, I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you the overview lowdown of what Jiminy Critic. If you're going to call me that, that's fine. This is what I
Let
think
me
about
interrupt
movies.
just one
Yeah.
second. I know some viewers that are watching this show that will be coming on because they want to hear about these movies.
Okay, here's the thing that I've said from day one. I'm going to tell you a little story about movies and me.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Jiminy Critic? Why did Ken want me to do movies years ago for just a little sideline thing? Well, it started when I was a teenager. You got to understand, I had a very, very strict background growing up. I was a Baptist kid growing up, if that means anything to you. You know what I'm talking probably.
Well, I know.
And a very strict type.
Right.
Nowadays there's all sorts of denominations. But I
Right,
grew up
right.
that way, and it was sort of one of the things, there's the list of do's and don'ts for kids in church and movies. Sometimes, depending on whatever church you're in, was off the list. Well, I was the oldest one in the family, drove the car first, had the first part-time job because my brothers and sisters were all 6 and 6 years, 12 years away from me. So I was the first one out there earning some money as a teenager, and I sort of sneaked away at one time to a movie. Do you remember a movie in probably 1980 maybe, or somewhere called Airplane, a comedy movie with Leslie Nielsen? Get me to a hospital. What is it? Well, it's a big building full of sick people. Oh, Shirley, you must be kidding. I'm not kidding. Stop calling me Shirley. That stupid whole routine. I laughed and laughed and laughed at that movie, and I probably wasn't supposed to see it as a teenager because it was rated PG back then, which PG then is almost like PG-13
Oh, I want to talk
now.
about ratings.
Well, but what I'm saying is that and then Star Wars, I saw Star Wars when it first came out in '77, that big ship coming over the top of me in the movie theater. And for me, just family situations I won't get into, movies were an escape for me for a couple of hours from real life. I'd work my part-time job, went to school, did family life, but when I had a chance, I'd go catch a movie somewhere, usually by myself, because again, we probably weren't supposed to be going. One of those things. And then horrors, if you
did
see
things like that, Jimmy?
Well, wait a minute. Horrors, if you saw somebody else from church in there when you both saw each other, you looked away real quick and just decided you didn't see each other. You know what I mean? It's one of those, you're here too? Oh no. I'm just saying that's how it was for my life growing up as a youngster. Well, I love movies. I just love the idea of the story, and so I've seen my share of good, bad, and ugly. Here's my theory. Hollywood is not, I've come to understand this. Hollywood is not your friend. They don't care about you, Chuck. Hollywood doesn't care about me or you or the viewer. They care about the bottom line. They don't care what they put out as long as it makes money. Because all of you are saying to yourselves, why is there so much movies? A lot of them are just junk. And I would agree with that. I've seen a lot of them. There's some really good ones that you remember, and there's some that, how did that get by? And think about it. Those are the ones that got through a big meeting full of Hollywood people. There's hundreds you never hear about. They say, no, we're not touching that. The bad ones you see that are still crummy got okayed by some bigwig in Hollywood that said, let's do that. And even though we think they're still bad. I have come to find you make a quality, family-oriented, clean movie that the family can go to together. I'll give you examples.
Are they doing that today?
Zootopia, $400 million in movie theater intake. It's not even barely started on video yet. Right now, Secret Life of Pets, first weekend, almost 200 million. Finding Dory, 13 they just started this Friday.
Okay.
13 years after Finding Nemo came out, they make Finding Dory. It's 2 weeks out now, hundreds of millions of dollars in take.
Wow.
And there's movies I named off my top, on Mondays I do the top 10 money makers from Hollywood over the weekend, what made money. So I just do 10. I have a list of 100, but the top 10. And right now, 3 of them are family-rated movies. Here's the theory that you got to remember, Chuck. First of all, little kids can't go to a movie by themselves. So if you got 2 kids, there's 2 tickets for the kids. There's at least a parent or both mom and dad. You almost sell 3 to 4 tickets per showing per person that wants to go see them, because you got to take the kids. They can't go walk in by themselves. And if they're quality, people are going to go. We all remember those Pixar movies we love, Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. You know, Inside Out just came out a year or 2 ago. That made hundreds of millions of dollars. Anybody remember something called Frozen? The big thing over Frozen? Family, quality, and they're animated movies. Some of these aren't even live action people. They're animated and they make tons of money. Every animated movie doesn't, but a well-made, good story, family can go see it together, there's your money. Then that gives Hollywood lots of money left over to go make the pet projects for their friends, and this R-rated movie that ends up being crummy, this movie that's not so great. They have money to make those because the good ones brought in tons of bucks, and they just keep making and making and making. So I say I'm all for family movies because there's not a lot of things you can do today where everybody can do it together.
That's true. Very true.
I can take I have a 9-year-old, I have a 19-year-old, my wife and I, we've gone to certain movies where all 4 of us loved the movie and saw it in a different way. My little 9-year-old would say this, the 19-year-old would say that, my wife would say this, I'd say that, and we all had a different take, but all enjoyed it and loved it. How often does that happen?
Yeah.
So movies can be magic. They're not all magic, but they can be if they're done right. Again, nothing wrong with like books in a library. More adult type of entertainment. There's a place for that if it's done right, if it's done well, and if it's quality. It's the stuff that gets to a guy like me that sees a lot of movies maybe more than the public does. I've seen so many I'm jaded now. I almost go into some titles knowing what I'm going to see in the script, knowing what I'm going to see in the story, and knowing how it's going to turn out. Mm-hmm. But I might like the character that's in it. I might like the actor or actress that's in it, so I'll go see it because they're in it. And again, why do most people go to movies? They like a certain actor or actress. Almost anything they put out, somebody might go to see. So Hollywood knows that.
What kind of movie do you like to go see?
Well, for now, I like the family feature. Well, I like the family feature. I don't know if I'd say it's my favorite, but like the one the family can watch, and maybe G or PG rated at most. I can recall a movie, and Pat Williams used to make fun of me about this, that I said I teared up doing a movie called Up. There was a movie, Edward Asner is an old guy in a cartoon movie where he and his wife had all these plans to go do stuff after retirement. And in the movie, they show you in the course of the movie, without a word being said, that those plans are dashed because she dies of some bad disease and he's left alone as an old man. They don't get to do their dreams. So he's a crotchety, mean old man because life didn't turn out the way and while you're sitting there watching what their life could have been planning out in front of you, you're like, that looks so real to me, like it really could happen, and you understand why he's the way he is. Well, then in comes this little Boy Scout, old fat chubby Boy Scout kid with a dog, and the kids come there wanting to sell candy or sell something to him. Get away, kid, get out of here, you know. And of course, you know they're going to now form a relationship. Well, he goes and puts balloons on his house, and he's going to go take that trip to South America by floating his house through the air and go that way. And there's a whole adventure of him and the kid learning from each other, old and young, but there's a dog that every time, squirrel, every time, something comes by, he gets it. It's very well made, and it actually, I teared up a couple of times. Well, I did in Toy Story too. Sometimes, somehow, you tell me how a cartoon can get you to an actual emotional state where you might almost tear up from it, but there's something they do that makes it so realistic. Andy giving up his toys when he gets older for college or puts them away and didn't want them anymore, but they still want to be wanted by their master. There's just something about a quality story. You can't beat it. And that's what kind of Hollywood what used to be about, telling a great story. See, remember in the old days, they didn't make as many films. They made a lot more. Remember Cecil B. The big directors, big, huge epics, westerns on the screen, the big ones. Those are all great stories being told, and that's why people love movies. They escape their life for a couple of hours, enjoy themselves, and wouldn't you rather come out of a theater or watching a DVD together at home and say, that was really good. I'd like to see that again, instead of, well, we did it again, another crummy movie we watched. Just the difference in the two.
Do you like comedy movie?
I do like comedies, and my favorite, I guess I would use the word thriller. I like cop bad guy movies that tell, now I like the movie where the good guy wins, but in today's modern movies, they shade characters so much that sometimes you're sympathetic toward the bad guy in the movie for whatever reason, and you're almost rooting for them. Sometimes the movie's filled with bad guys, and it's now a degree of how bad. The really bad guy, we don't want them. The guy that's had a rough time in life and turned bad, you're kind of hoping he comes. It's almost like they can make you, by emotional, the music, the words, the dialogue, make you feel for a guy that would be a normal criminal in our minds, but in the movie it's like, I hope he takes them out, that kind of thing. Government conspiracy movies, those are kind of fun for me. Thrillers, I guess.
How about tearjerkers?
My wife likes some of that. She likes rom-coms, as they call them, romantic comedies, so I'll watch movies with her like that because she enjoys them. They're not my favorite, but
you'll go and watch it.
Because when she gets all sniffly and crying, she gets a little closer, and so I can deal with some. That's not a problem. Sure.
How about the scary movie?
Like horror?
Yeah.
My friend Chris Johnson loves that stuff. That's not my forte. If you know Chris, he loves horror movies. Yeah, well, he loves horror movies, but they're okay, but they're not the top of the list for me.
Westerns?
I'll tell you one that I've never forgotten.
They don't make many westerns anymore.
Well, the old one, remember The Wild Bunch? That was in its day. Sam Peckinpah directed that. A lot of famous actors in it, but it was violent for its day in the 70s. Then the movie The Magnificent Seven. Love that old one. Yul Brynner and all of them. They remade that, by the way. Denzel Washington is in a new make of The Magnificent Seven, and I got to see it. I can't wait to see that one. I liked Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven from 1992. That's one of the most interesting westerns I've ever seen. Morgan Freeman's in it. Gene Hackman plays one of the crummiest guys you'll ever meet, but it's well done. And the bad guys get there, but some of the good guys do too. It's one of those that's kind of realistic to life. But I thought Unforgiven, he directs a lot of movies now, but I thought Unforgiven was a great western, yeah.
How about musicals?
I do like some. Now, one of the ones that I thought was most interesting of recent day, I can't think of the name of the director. I just can't. But Hugh Jackman was in it, and the female lead's leaving me, but Les Miserables made into a film from the stage play. That's a hard thing to do, to make it into a movie from the famous stage play, because I knew the stage play, and my son and I love the music from it, the songs from it. I got him turned on to that, and he still likes it to this day. Yeah, Jimmy Jr. He loves it, and he's a Marine now, but he'd still admit that. But he loves it. Oh, and Hathaway is her name, maybe? Anyway, they're both in it. Hugh Jackman plays Jean Valjean, and that story of a guy serving 20 years of his life. This is French time, 1700s. For stealing a loaf of bread for his hungry family, but his punishment is just way beyond what maybe really should have happened, and he's treated like a slave. And yet in the story, he becomes something greater, and the songs and the rising anthems, that's one of the better made ones that I thought has been done recently, Les Miserables. I like that one. That was a few years back they did that.
One more thing on movies
Sure.
Before I move on to the...
Hope I'm not boring you to death.
Oh, no, I'm enjoying it, and because I want to move on to the
Okay,
topic
sure.
too. You touched a little bit on it earlier about today's ratings.
Yeah.
A PG-13 movie, say today, would probably, am I wrong in saying would probably be, in the 70s and 80s, it probably would have been R-rated?
Could be, because you know what's funny? When that first started, Steven Spielberg's one of the ones that started that rating to come into being. And I can't remember, it wasn't Jaws. He had that movie, by the way, 75 that movie came out. That's a 41-year-old movie. Can you believe that, Jaws? The first, they called that the first summer.
Like it, does it?
That's the first movie they called a blockbuster. That's the first time they used that term, summer block. Now we have them every year. And they're not all blockbusters, by the way. But that was one of his movies, and now it's slipping me which one. They knew it wasn't for kids, but it wasn't our adult. We got to do something. They came up with that rating, PG-13. May not be suitable for those under 13. Well, today, and I'm just talking as a parent, I'm not a prude, but I'll tell you what, 13 from when it started to where it is still now rated on movies, there's much more violence and bloodshed shown in a 13 than it ever started in violent movies. Well, you know the movie Taken with Liam Neeson?
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
PG-13, one of them. I mean, that's hard to imagine.
Right.
Language is a little rougher in a 13. Now, you used to be able to slip in, there's rules for this. 2 of this, 3 of that, 1 of those, and that's it. Pretty much any word you're thinking of
Now, you
can
say
be...
rules.
Well, like say a bad word, the bomb. You could have one in the whole movie. One time you better use it where you need it because that's all you get. Well, it's a little more lax now. For 13s, I'm still talking. Because teenagers will go see these movies, and now what they've done... They make many movies, cut a little bit out from the R, because remember, the movie rating system rates these and then puts the rating out there. R, you can't get too many teenagers in it though unless they sneak in. PG-13, you can go into any movie that's 13 if you're the right age. So they cut little bits enough to make that rating fit, but it's still pretty rough. We would probably consider it rough stuff. And kids are kind of growing up on a diet of that today. I mean, I can't fault, it's just what it is.
So, Jimmy, what is R, 17?
Yeah, you got to be 17 or older, and then there's that NC-17, which no, you have to have a guardian. Like I could,
NC?
well, those are movies that are even past R, and there's usually a sexual or very violent connotation that takes it. Most movies don't want to even be rated that because nobody can go to see them, right, basically. They kind of it's almost like an old-fashioned X. It's just not a great rating, unless you're a director that wants to put that out there and doesn't really care too much. But usually G, P, and you'll be hard-pressed to find a G movie, just plain old G anymore. Most, even kids' movies are PG today.
Let's move on to the talk show,
Let's do
Jimmy.
it, sure.
About a year now you've been doing that?
Actually, December, right in the beginning of December I started.
I remember you had me on your show here a few
Yeah.
months back, and you were just kind of getting started in it, and
Absolutely.
you thought it was going to be temporary,
I didn't know.
but it looks like it might be permanently.
Well, here's the thing.
Until I take it over? No, I'm just kidding.
Come on, enjoy it. Well, it's funny. I do have sort of a weekly co-host, more or less. Martha Sorahan from the local paper
Great.
joins me on
Isn't
Fridays.
she a great lady?
We get along great, and she's a
Oh.
great balance to me. She knows the questions to ask when I don't, and vice versa. I really enjoy her.
Just a great lady.
Most Fridays she'll be on with me from 8 to 10. Not every week, but most weeks since I started. So we have a lot of fun with that. But yeah, December I started, and Bob had just left. He had the North Coast Mornings, and he was doing for a couple of months there after Pat was done. And he did it, and then he got a job at a paper. And Ken, well, it's funny, Ken pulls me aside when he says, I need to talk to you a little bit, because I was working in other things in the company at the time. And my work was slowing up a little bit, and I wasn't working every single day. So I wanted to hear what he had to say, and he says, well, we don't want to lose the local morning slot of 7 to 10 show, because that's ours right now. And I imagine, I don't know how all this works, but I imagine if you give it up, it's probably hard to ever get that back again. So we thought, would you be willing to keep the show going? Let's just see how it goes, but not just give it up right away because Bob's done. Would you try it? And the first thing I said was, no, I don't think I can do that.
Oh, really?
Right, it was like a Friday.
With your personality?
I knew what it meant to do it, and I thought, I don't know, Ken, I'm not sure. So he then calls me at home after my first sort of a no. Jim, before I let the slot go and tell Regis and them that we're going to take the show out of the rotation, would you reconsider? And I said, okay, as long as you think I can be me and I can just sort of do the show. I mean, I said, I can't copy anybody else. Pat's Pat. That guy has a legacy in this town. You know, you can't. Bob's a great guy. Everybody knows him, even though he has short term. He has his way of doing things. I'm me. You guys know how I am. I'm just a different kind of person. And if I can be me, if I had to pretend to
You're more versatile. You're versatile.
be somebody, I couldn't do it. Because it's hard. Because sometimes you got to talk for hours with nobody with you on the air. Sometimes that
It's
happens.
tough, isn't it?
Well, some days it's very tough.
Sometimes people don't show
Mondays-
up when they're supposed to show.
Mondays can sometimes be the toughest day of the week. No, but anyway, besides that, but you notice, do I have any trouble filling time? No. So there's no trouble. Here's the thing. Started in December, a little sketchy at first because I was nervous. Of course I was. I had done a show when Pat was like on vacation or sick. I mean,
Right.
like you knew how to fill in and turn the
Right.
buttons on and all
Right.
that. You've done that.
Right.
So I knew the mechanic of it, but not prepare and be ready every day to talk to people. Well, we started getting a guest list together. Some of the regulars that had been on the show, I started there because I knew who they were, at least somewhere to start. Because I like to get 2 to 3 people a day if I can, just so the viewers have other people and interesting things either in Conneaut, or I'm stretching it to countywide too. I've had county people on too, just to make it interesting. And
County people, that's like hometown.
yeah, well, what I'm
It's
just
basically
saying,
hometown.
I have as much Conneaut news on there as I can possibly do, and then as it expands, and I've expanded every month to every month I've had some new people on the show, and I love my guests, the ones that come back repeatedly, I love them. We love doing things like with the library here in town. I love promoting our library. We got a great library
You
here in
still have the
Conneaut.
library girls that come on?
I'm going to think about it, but I'm pretty much sure I'm going to have them on. Yeah, no, of course I am. They're one of the best things I have on the show.
And they are.
A lot of, like I do an ACMC thing twice in the month, comes on. The hospital people still come on twice. So there's some regulars. I've had our city manager on almost once every month kind of a thing, or twice. So there's some people that are regulars. Then I just find, if I see something in a paper that's coming up, hey, maybe they'll come on and talk to me about what's going on. Somebody won an award, or somebody's doing something really neat in the community. And then even my viewers that write up to my email address will say, hey, have you talked to so-and-so? They know them that I might not know.
So you contact your guests yourself?
Oh, I do. It's like a one-man show is what it is now. We're not, it's stripped down. There's nobody in the studio but me every morning. I get there about 6:15 to 6:30 and then get ready for the show. And that's just me, though. I probably don't have to, but I like to be prepared.
What are you finding, Jimmy, that most people like to hear about the most? What's the hot topics that are being on the TV in the morning? What are people calling in wanting to talk
Well, now,
about?
this is the thing. It's funny. Sometimes, and the phone's the same number it's been since Pat had it 8 years ago. It's the same
593-7981?
7181.
Oh, 7181.
Right,
See,
it's the same number.
I've been away a while.
The only thing changed was the email address, but that's still, once they get it once, it's no biggie. Here's the thing. It's funny. Some days I'll be talking and doing news, sports. I do funny stories. I call it, I scour the internet so you don't have to do the hard work. On news you're not going to hear on the main channels. I get these crazy stories when I have to fill in time. Some days, that little, you know the little light that blinks when it tells you a phone call's coming in? 'Cause we
I
don't
get
have-
all excited.
Well, we don't have a
Little
ringer in the
press it.
studio, so there's no noise. It's just that blinker. Well, some days it's as dark as a closed room.
Yeah, well, that's why we want to see it flashing.
Right. But, like, I'll give you an example just to throw it out there. This past Friday, I had on the 2 guys that run CNC and B&B trash hauling. And they're
Oh,
guys that work
Colin
out.
Fagan?
Yes, and Mr. Bob Haas.
Uh-huh.
Happened to have them on, and they were doing that petition thing that ends sometime this week. I think the timing of it is this week. Well, that's been a topic, let's just say in Conneaut, that even on my show, brings callers in. If the manager's on talking about their side of things, they'll call in to talk to him. And
It's a hot topic.
Well, I'm just saying, that is something that was big. Now, and Friday I had 6 calls to them specifically, which most people I have on, I'll get 1 or 2 people say, hey, I know you, and you were, I have nurses on. You helped me out at the hospital and did great, the library people. I really enjoy reading the books and you guys are so nice. I'll get a call or 2, but 6 calls from them was a lot to me on that day. We haven't had that for a while. Unless I'm giving away tickets. Then we get a ton of calls. But that's normal. But right now, like the trash was a big thing. In my 7 months of doing the show, that's the biggest story we've talked about that caused any kind of,
Controversy.
people talking about stuff. That's
Both ways?
Yeah,
That
both
some
ways.
for, some
I
against?
think that, yeah, there were. Actually, there were. Yep, both ways. So it was just an interesting thing that I found after all these months. That was a big one that stood out. Yeah.
Do you find when you're doing your show that, now you do it 3 hours, right?
Yeah,
7 to
we're
10.
on 7 to 10.
Do you try to stick to like a certain topic each hour, or do you, it doesn't matter?
Well, here's what I do. I plan, because most people, now, I get some people, like if any of you know Pat Carr, and she does the Heart to Heart Ministries with the addiction folks. I think because of her work, when she comes on the show, she's almost a monthly guest. She'll come on before they have one of their meetings that she likes to talk about and announce. She'll come in at 7:15 or so, because then I think she goes off to work. Most people, 8 or 9 o'clock is when I figure guests are coming on. I do usually the first hour most of the time solo news stories, sport. Well, we've talked about the Cavs and the Indians.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah,
Are you getting into that
sports,
sports
news.
talk with the Cavaliers?
Yeah, and it was fun. So, I mean, I do the first hour, I kind of cover, and then certain stories I found that I want to talk about. But again, if a guest wants to come on early, I accommodate that. But it's rare. In a week's time, I may have one early guest. Most of them are at 8 or 9. I find that's how that's going. No special topic other than what the guest is. If it's like ACMC people, we'll talk hospital things. If you were to come on, I ask you about like your Facebook page. It's kind of like whoever's on. The library ladies come on. If it's the adult, like Kathy comes on, or whomever, it will talk about what their subject matter is in the library. So I kind of let them, and once they start talking, it feeds me to think of things to talk with them about. So I treat it like us talking right now, and they're just kind of looking in at us while our show's going on. Is kind of what I treat it like.
So when you have those days where you don't have a guest,
Yeah.
do you ever do any replays of anything?
I don't have any capability to do anything on tape anymore at all. It's me live on the camera, or it's the scenery shot, or it's a commercial. So I have to have
That makes
material
it really
ready.
tough.
Well, yes and no. I'm not griping at all.
It wouldn't make it tough for you, no, because you do have the personality and you can go on from one
thank
thing
you
to,
for that.
from
but
one thing to another.
I'm being honest. 5 days a week. I don't think everybody wants to see me 15 hours a week on the show. I wouldn't. I want people on there. So when I have to do it, yeah, I come up with stuff. I try to goof around with the camera a little bit once in a while. I may do something. When we're doing a contest one time, funny, just to do something different, I get 50 callers. On one of them, I just said, Jim's Pizza Shop, what can I get you? Just to, and you know, the funny thing is,
I think you did that once when I was on there.
they're so bent on getting that name on. They didn't hear a word I said other than I turned their microphone on. You know, Tom Jones here, and they didn't. I said, "Do you want a pizza?" And they didn't even catch me. They were so intent on it. Then I had the funny ladies after that. I did it one more time, and she goes, "I'd like a pepperoni, please." And I go, "You heard what I said." So I mean, sometimes I play with the guys on the audience. You never know.
I guess what most
It's a
people,
great town, by the way. These people are great people that watch that show.
yes, and I guess most people don't realize that you're not only just sitting there talking for 3 hours, but you're in there before 7, setting up the cameras. And the day you had me on, the TVs weren't working, and
You know what's
we were
funny?
scrambling around.
And this might have, I've had a couple of replacement people for me. I had to have some days off with my dad passing, and then when I took my son to go to the Marines, I took off. And some library folks filled in for me one time. Martha and Randy Jones from United Way filled in for me like a Friday, Monday kind of thing. They did a fantastic job, and I almost worry when they come in for me, don't do too good of a job, because I want to come back to my job next week when you come back. Because, you know, a change sometimes is fun to have somebody else on the show. So, yeah, I look forward to it. I get nervous every day. I don't know what it is. A little bit of butterflies, about 10 to 7. I start that. Okay, it's about 10 minutes, and
But by 7:20 though, you're calm as a cucumber.
well, it might look that way. Yeah, that's what a professional does. They do their job even with a mask on.
Well, you do a great job.
Well, I appreciate that.
We want
Thank
to
you.
Continue great success
Thank you.
and keep up the good work.
I love it. Thanks, Chuck. Thanks for having me on today. It was great.
Yes, it was our pleasure. Jimmy Kulko, or Jiminy
Jiminy Critic.
our guest today on Around the Town with Chuck. We'll see you next week.